The Tuning Fork, setting the tone for cultural activism through weekly encounters with cultural activists worldwide. Live on ICAI, Institute for Cultural Activism International. Okay, Veronica, we're going live.
1, 2, 3, yeah, like that. Oh, Jen is there and Maria is there. That's so nice.
Okay, well, right now there are police sirens in New York City. Are you handling the incoming applicant? Well, right now in New York City, there are police sirens, and as we speak, storefronts are being boarded up again with the anticipation of riots, demonstrations, and looting in the wake of today's election. If it is an election, it might take time to be an election, but it's election day, and they're battening down the hatches. This is our fifth meeting. It's fifth or sixth, isn't it?
Six.
Oh, this is our sixth meeting, six. And Veronika was just about to perform one of her personalities. Is that right, Veronika? That's Veronika.
That's another question. I will answer this question.
I misunderstood that. But anyway, here we are. And Karolina Majewska is your friend, I think, also here.
Yes, she's there.
Jen Mazza, hello. Oh, hi.
Hi.
It's so nice to see everybody. As the program continues, we'll probably be receiving more requests for participants. But Ron Smith is here. Hi, Ron. I don't know. I don't like to be presumptuous and make labels or things like that, but I've been trying to avoid describing what Veronika is doing or has been doing as a kind of cultural vampirism. I don't know, Veronika, how you feel about that sensation, but when did you start doing this kind of work?
Oh, you just okay. So that's like you throw me into the deep water, so people don't really. No, but most of the people here, I think, more or less know what I do. So that's quite convenient. Also.
Well, there's Gordon.
No, you keep it a very big secret, like this kind of work.
Yeah, it's a secret. It's a kind of secret work. It feels like it. You know, it seems as though you
yes,
travel into other people, into other people's personalities and mannerisms, gestures. This is a very fascinating idea. When you recreate a performance, it's not as though you're reproducing a performance, but there's the notion and the context that you're inhabiting the kind of energy or some nuance that's very personal.
Oh my God, wait a second.
Is there a cat there?
Oh, good. No, sorry. That was my battery. I thought that's...
Okay, you're plugged in?
Good. No, I'm good. Sorry.
So it seems as though what Veronika is doing, and if you don't mind me sort of, describing casually. By the way, Sally, you look great, and look at that background. It's pretty cool. In Afton, Minnesota. Here in New York.
It's so beautiful and warm here today. I was sitting outside. That's why I'm late. Sorry.
Oh well, you got to get the rays.
You do.
And share them. But there's police sirens in the background, fire engines here in New York in Union Square, and the storefronts are being boarded up. Gordon's out there in Brooklyn. I guess you're in Brooklyn, Gordon Skinner, in Cobble Hill neighborhood. I would guess things are pretty calm over there.
Relatively.
Yeah. And Eileen Mislove is joining us from Court Street, a few blocks away from Gordon. Other folks, I guess, maybe in Europe. Perhaps. But as you can see, Veronica, people will be joining us as according to lifestyle, time schedule, and appetite and generosity. Do people like to come and just share their being with us together in this kind of community space? And we thank you very much, Veronica, for adding your aspect of a tuning fork, your work that requires that you somehow also inhabit and resonate certain qualities or colors or personalities or nuances related to artists that you choose to somehow underline, emphasize, and bring to our attention. But I wanted to ask you a question, Veronika, because from a very normal kind of human relations and interaction point of view or experience, often I find that when I'm speaking with someone and I get to hang out with people for a little while, I already begin to pick up on the way they speak, the sort of sensibilities that they have, the aesthetics of how they sort of, articulate and enunciate and the elocution, their gestures. We automatically do that somehow naturally in human intercourse. And I don't know if other people notice that when it's happening to them, or, if someone is picking up on our expressions, that's an old thing in the 70s and 80s called neurolinguistic programming, where we would mirror the other person. And then when we wanted to promote or bring them into our sort of idea or convince them or sell something or heal them from a therapeutic application of neurolinguistic programming, we would intentionally adapt or adopt these aspects. When was it that you noticed, Veronika, that you were sort of fascinated by that, or that became a tool or a skill that you employed in your work?
Okay, I will try to answer maybe. First of all, I would like to, of course, thank you, John and Emily, for an invitation, and thank you for coming. Being here, everyone. It's a weird space, as we all know, and I'm not going to talk too much about advantages and disadvantages of meeting at Zoom, but here we go, and it's great. Okay. When I started being interested, I think that I probably should differentiate between when I started being aware of it and started treating it as my kind of way of working. And because, of course, I think that I realized that we do that, what you mentioned way before, I kind of started using it as a, let's call it a practice, no? In a way.
Just let me interrupt you, Veronika. Can everybody hear Veronika? Okay, thank you so much. And Veronika, maybe, if you don't mind, tell us what the it is.
The it?
Yeah.
What did I say?
What, in other words,
I don't know what I say.
What is your work?
I think Johnny described very, very well my work. That was very, that I think that's at the core of what I do. That's basically, exactly, I think that it also comes from the fact that we all more or less consciously pick up on things from other people and behave certain way with certain people and different way with other people. And many times you are not aware of this, but I think everyone does that. And somehow, of course, we meet people throughout our life, and some people are closer to us than others. And you know, the longer you stay with somebody, the more you kind of inhabit those things from other person. And then I think that's sort of in a way throughout our life, we become a kind of a vessel for all these gestures and all these qualities of other people. And I kind of wanted to make it consciously in a way.
When were you conscious that you were interested in that? When were you conscious that this was something you wanted to really, you know, dive into?
I think that kind of groundbreaking moment for me was a work that I was doing for not that very long time, but most of my projects are quite processual, I would say, like, you know, ongoing things, and they take time. But there was a project that kind of by accident, I had an access to an artist studio in Amsterdam, where I lived for a moment. And I kind of, to say it shortly, I kind of started learning this artist handwriting. That was the first, I think, project that I was, after doing this, I was of that fact. And so a sculptress and a ballet dancer. So I thought, and what I heard from her family, that she was very disciplined and very, yeah, let's say disciplined person. And I kind of wanted to learn that from her. And so that's why I decided to kind of, you know, take something from her. So I thought that the learning handwriting would be maybe a way to do that, to learn from her other skills that I didn't have at that time. And yeah, I think it's quite hard to talk about this work, quite abstract. I feel like it's you know, people don't really know what I do. And
okay, why don't you, as Emily suggested,
we just jumped into. I'm sorry.
Ask Emily. Yeah.
Oh, could you just
Mute.
I know, but you have to mute if I unmute.
Okay, I'm muted.
Okay. Weronika, could you describe one of your projects that might give people a little more information, instead of talking about, but like from beginning to end?
Yeah, maybe different one. Yes, maybe I'm just gonna say like more or less what I do, right? So kind of, as I said, like inhabiting things from other people, as John mentioned, other artists usually. It's a process of learning, and it's a process of observation. It's a process of kind of trying to getting into the character at some point, and embody certain traits or qualities of people, mostly quite often voice-related qualities. So I had a project that I learned a voice of another artist and a laughter, or as I said, so handwriting, and so that's the process is when I kind of choose the quality that I want to learn, and by this try to understand the artist better also, and myself, and try to inhabit this quality. It's based on, it's very much learning process and repetition at the beginning, and then it transforms into something more natural, that it's between my quality and the other person's quality in a way. So for example, I have been working on this project on George Machuna's laughter for several years now, and it's always a very long story related to every project, but in
So
this
George
certain
Machunas' laughter, Veronika, yeah?
moment,
And who is George Machunas?
And George Machunas was
yes,
sort of we call the originator of Fluxus. Yeah?
yes.
Why
That's true.
George Machunas? Why this man, this person?
Why George Machunas? So yes, I mean, like every time when I choose a certain character, it's more of a like personal interest and quite intuitive also. I think with George Machunas was Fluxus was always close to my heart in a way, and since I remember, it was always perceived. I mean, in my education, I was always being taught that Fluxus was something very conceptual and serious, and yes, all these guys. I mean, Fluxus, as probably I don't know if everyone knows.
I'm sure that not everyone knows about Fluxus. Maybe would you like me to say something about Fluxus?
Maybe you can say a few words if you don't mind.
In the late 50s and early 60s, artists began to explore the role of the process of creativity as the product of creativity, that the process and the product are mingled without separation and equally important to consider. And it automatically implies that life and art are also inseparable, so that life experience can germinate into a creative experience and vice versa. So without elaborating it much further, Fluxus art events or objects often used very common and identifiable either commodity products or domestic kinds of objects and tools, industrial sorts of, containers, or they would modify musical instrument to create an unexpected sort of sound. And then sound became itself a potential for music. So this was a very fluid kind of conversation that Fluxus was having with the public. And the contribution that Fluxus makes is very serious and very substantial. And I just want to say that many of the Fluxus individuals did pursue some kind of mystical or spiritual or meditation kind of training or education that sometimes was obvious or integrated in their work, but in many cases just became some sort of a navigation tool for their life. And in fact, interesting enough, I'll just quickly flash on a Fluxus artist, and maybe we can tell a little story, if you don't mind, Veronika. I'm going to screen share.
I think we jumped so much. Oh, okay. I honestly got lost already in what I was talking about.
You got lost in what you were saying?
Mm.
That's exciting. But it was more or less why George Machunas and
No, but I don't know what you want to show, John. So I'm not sure if I'm gonna, if it's maybe I should just continue and then we do this, or what do you want to show?
I was going to show this image. It's just so strange that it doesn't show up here, for God's sake. It's an image of you playing cards at the.
There it goes.
There it is. Yeah.
Oh no, it disappeared.
Now, this is an intuitive game of cards played blindfolded. It was a recreation of a Robert Filiu blind card game called Leads, an intuitive game of cards. And as you can see, the woman with the white blouse, her cards are visible. And that means that the spectators who are not blindfolded get to see what hand each card player has. And the hands of the lady to the left with a dark shirt and the hands, her cards are facing the camera. That's Weronika. So Weronika entered into this card game as a player in an artwork by a Fluxus artist named Robert Filiu. And what happened with Alison Knowles, the woman with the white blouse, is quite astonishing and remarkable. And we can talk about that.
Yeah, so that's just to be clear, because I'm sure that everyone knows, but maybe not. That's a work by Robert Filiu. I just performed that, but yeah, it's not my work. No, just to be clear, it wasn't me. I was invited by John and Emily to join this performance, which was great. But yeah, it's not part of my regular work, let's say. So yes, George Martunas was a founder of. In Fluxus, there were also many different artists that we all know, like Yoko Ono, right, and Namjoon Paik, and I'm sure that we all know probably. Can I continue, John? Or
no, please go ahead.
Okay. Because
when you want to, I can share the George Martunas laugh video.
Okay, so we'll do it at the end. I'm just trying to kind of still introduce people what I do, because I'm pretty sure that it's not clear for anyone. So yes, so George Martunas was founder of this movement, as John described, and so one of the things that I was interested in was more from the side of like so for me as a student before Fluxus being very popular in Poland as well, was being perceived as a movement, very serious and conceptual movement, as I said. And later on, of course, after my education, I discovered that that's entirely not true, and it's really funny, and the humor and irony was a very big part of it. And George Martunas was always very intriguing to me, and he was very enigmatic also man that many people don't know much about him. And he had very complex personality as well, and very complex sexuality. And he also moved from Lithuania, where he was born as a young man or like teenager. He was brought to New York. He came to New York with his family. So he started his life as an immigrant, right? We call it if you go to this way. So he had a really complex history as well, personal history. And laughter, besides the fact that it was for me like a kind of a very important part of Fluxus that I discovered, was also one of the qualities of George that I thought that hasn't changed over time, over all his life events. That as we know, that the voice we can learn the way we speak, we can learn the way we move, we can have control over a lot of other things, but we don't have control over laughter as much. We can mimic, but it's not that it's gonna change forever. So laughter is something that is more like a, let's say, atavistic feature of us, much more than voice, for example. And I kind of found it as a quality that was very specific to him, and as a thing that just hasn't changed no matter what happened in his life or was happening in his life. And also later on, I discovered that he had very particular laughter, more as a chuckle, and like in some interviews that I heard, it was more like he was laughing out of his own jokes and like very specific laughter. So it was also very interesting for me to see how it would be possible to kind of adapt it, the way he was laughing, to my own laughter, which is quite different, and it was quite different at the time. And of course, over the time, you kind of repeat and kind of try to learn certain thing or certain feature. You start noticing that, of course, your own, in this case, laughter becomes different. It becomes more his laughter, but it's something in between. It's always something in between. I'm not trying to mimic. So that's a process of adapting in a way. And I did go to Lithuania to look in the sources of, the childhood of George Maciunas. I work with Lithuanian actors, also to learn kind of more how can I improve the way I was kind of at that time mimicking, let's say, his laughter. And yeah, that's a long story, which later brought me to New York at some point, where I continue my research on George Maciunas. I met Jeffrey Perkins, who was working at the time on the movie and documentary on George Maciunas. So that's a whole other story. But in the end, the work, besides the fact that I kind of collect still until today his laughter in my body, I would say, it's a part of my own laughter now. I transformed this. This work became in the end a choir piece. So thinking about the laughter as let's say a gesture or an object even, that I can handle it to other people. I invite, usually doing performance of this work, I invite other people to join me in this laughter, and I learn them the way I can perform his laughter at that moment.
Would you like to share a little bit of the video from laughter?
I just, do you think, John, it was more or less clear what I said, that it was okay, or maybe I should add something before we show this?
I think it's clear, but if you have another detail to add, that's wonderful.
Oh, that means
I have a million questions for you, because this is so intriguing and compelling and strong. Weronika.
I would prefer more questions, because I can go on and I would get lost somewhere.
Here's the question, but let's just run 30 seconds of the event.
This is I'm just going to can I introduce? This is because it's important where it is. Both performances is very important where the place.
Yeah, definitely.
Are you going to show the Emily Harvey one?
Yes, it's there are two of them. One is the Museum of Modern Art, and one is Emily Harvey.
Yes, so very close to the Emily Harvey, the performance at the Emily Harvey Foundation in New York. It's very close to my heart, because the space of Emily Harvey is the very spot where George Maciunas once, because you might not know, but he was beaten almost to death, and that was the very spot at the staircase of the gallery. And at the gallery, he also performed his marriage. That's also another story that is life. So that's very historical. It's Emily Harvey Foundation is a gallery, like Fluxus Gallery. So that's a very important location at the very heart of the essence of George Maciunas.
Great. I'm going to go to the screen share, and if the sound is not so wonderful, that's simply a malfunction of the delivery system of Zoom. It doesn't have high quality playback. So we'll see everything fine, but we may not hear the audio element that well. So we won't stay too long with it, just enough to get a little flavor of it so we can inhabit your work, Weronika.
Can you, John, can you scroll it and the end, because this is quite important what they do at the end.
Okay, and how's the sound on your side, Veronica? Can you hear it?
No, more or less.
Okay.
Just I will explain what it does. Maybe. No, I didn't. No, it's. I think it's. Okay, that was too far. But anyway. Yeah, the sound is not very good, but we can. Yeah, we can't really hear much, but I hope that at least.
So, is there something that you would like to, add to this experience here, watching this?
Yes, I mean the idea. It's usually every performance is different and really depends on people who perform and the place. But in this particular case, besides the fact that the Emil Harvey Foundation, okay, it disappeared. Important is that it starts with this very manneristic laughter of George, and then it becomes this kind of madhouse, and people just join and try to just laugh naturally, and they try, they do. Because laughter, of course, is contagious, so it's kind of hard. And for this particular project, this particular performance, I worked with laughing yoga therapists. So there are two women who were professional yoga laughers. And yeah, they helped me to engage people more.
So Veronika, may I ask you, what's the difference about this work and that of, let's say, an actor or an actress inhabiting a character or developing a character?
Okay, yeah, that's a very good question. I think that the main difference is that I'm not trying to inhabit the character. Like, I'm not trying to become a person, right? I'm not trying to be a George Maciunas. I'm not trying to be Sturtevant, as I did a project about her. I'm not trying to be all the people that I work with, James Lee Byers and all that people. It's more about the essence, this little gesture that draw my attention personally. Also, there's always very personal work. I'm not trying to also do any like art historical, sum ups or I don't know, quintessence. And but yes, I would say that this is the biggest difference. I do admit that I did work with actors, and I do enjoy working with actors as well, just to learn some kind of methods from them. And I think especially beneficial for me was an experience working with actors who were trained with Stanislavski's method. So it's also very naturalistic. But it's always more of kind of learning methods, just to improve my own work. But yes, I don't step into the role. I think that it's also different that I don't step into the role. I kind of embody certain characteristics, which usually actors step out of the role after the performance. I think that I do believe, of course, that the character always stays a little bit with them, but they don't probably do it very consciously. For me, it's like an ongoing process. It's like more collecting and adding things. It's not that I enter one role and step out of this role. It's a kind of collecting all those pieces inside.
Well, Veronika, just in case at this moment other people in the space here want to ask a question or make a comment, this might be a nice opportunity to include some other some other minds and reactions. Can someone just let us know if they'd like to ask something or say something at this point? Oh, there's Ron Smith. Are you unmuting yourself, Ron?
I am unmuting myself.
Thank you.
I have two questions. One about the piece that we just saw. It's my understanding that there was an audience watching the performers.
Mhm.
And were those performers hired or selected by you to perform? They did not come out of the audience, right?
In this particular case, it wasn't mingled. It was more like a stage, and the audience was laughing just as an audience. They kind of didn't feel like they want to step in. So those people were, yes, they were actors and laughing yoga therapists, as I said, yes. But you can hear the audience laughing, but they didn't. Yeah.
But we couldn't see them.
Yes,
Right.
exactly. The camera was just on the one angle.
And my other question follows up on John's question about how your work differs from an actor. It doesn't sound to me like you're constructing a story, but you're using what you take from an individual like George as kind of raw material that you work with. But the intention is not to tell a story in any way. Is that correct?
I think that's very well put. But I do get into sort of more detailed research work, so that's very extensive. But as the material, yes, that I would say yes. So this is more like the essence of the one thing, exactly.
But you're not constructing a performance with a clear storyline to it or a narrative to it. Okay.
No. I think also what I really appreciate when I have a contact to talk to people, for example, that experience my work, that didn't know about George Martinez, or other people that I work with, like Dick Bellamy or Sturtevant, that they still can still participate in the work, and they can still understand the work and take something from it or feel something without even knowing who this person was.
Yeah.
Yes.
Great. Thank you for that.
Thank you.
That clarifies it quite a bit for me.
I beg your pardon, and thank you really, Ron, for that contribution. We have a note from Gordon Skinner, and Gordon, I absolutely have invited everyone to share a comment or ask a question, so please go ahead. Thanks, Gordon.
I actually saw Emily's hand up, so I don't know if I was before Emily, or certainly Emily, you can go.
You go.
Okay.
Thank you.
First, thank you all, and Veronika, thank you so much. Weronika, I'm so sorry. I appreciate, I'm a documentary filmmaker, and I was actually trained by the Stanislavski approach to theater and acting, and so I have a long appreciation for the Bible of an actor prepares. But outside of and I can appreciate also what you're suggesting, that there isn't a form. The form comes out of the work. So the laughter and then the engagement creates the piece. So it's a formless piece that takes shape based upon the participation. Is that a correct assessment? Yeah. But what I'm curious about is, outside of that environment, what is the role? What is the function? What's the purpose of this work beyond a theatrical environment? Would you apply this in a corporate environment? Would you apply this in a psychiatric environment? What are the different places that you could see that this would have purpose and value?
Definitely. I mean, this was the only one of the kind of, one of the possibilities, one of the ways, the ways, that would be a better word, of showing this. This was pretty theatrical, I would say, as you also described. But there are different ways. This is yes, it's definitely organic thing. It definitely changes over time, and I can absolutely see it on the street. I would love to do it one day on the street, and in different environment of people. definitely with not only actors, of course, not only actor performed. So that's not limited to. It's not like a script that has to be performed all the time the same.
So
It
in
also
other words,
depends
you
who
haven't,
is the participant.
okay, so for clarity, in other words, you haven't created it beyond that environment, because I can actually see this being used in a more of a psychotherapeutic environment, albeit an institution, or certainly in a therapy environment with patients that are, coming to delve deeper into, trauma. So I'm just wondering of the different, places that this can fit, because otherwise it becomes an academic or an intellectual discourse that becomes devoid of the myriad of possibilities and places that this could go.
Mm-hmm. Yes, thank you for this comment. I mean, it's very also important to me to see this work not only in art environment, I would say, and I do have plan for other kind of presentations of it. And also, of course, I would love to do it outside of the also art context. I'm planning to do some also workshops with this project, so I would love to keep it open, and it's evolving, and the idea is also very beautiful. I think that definitely I could see it in this way. So
Weronika, when I described you in our announcement as what do we call it? A identity sampler? As an identity sampler, and also an archive activist. Did you resonate with any of these sorts of ideas or contexts?
Yeah, that's a nice term to put it. I would say I like the sampling in a way. I like the word sampler, but I would see it more as a sampling music. That you kind of take. I don't know what was your, John, the kind of idea behind it, but I see it as sampling. And when you sample music, sampling music, you put different pieces together, and then you have whole composition in that sense.
Can Emily ask a question now? I'm turning off my sound.
Okay. Oh, hang on. Okay. Does this, I'm wondering, wait, I need to admit someone 1 second.
I did.
Oh, you did? Okay. I archive artists' work in rather a standard way. And when you talked about taking this fragment of George Maciunas, I was thinking that it was kind of like, for me, I take an artwork and there's a dimension, height, width, depth, and a medium. And it's, when you talked about it in that way, it almost seemed to me like you were using the laughter as one of those categories. So like the George Maciunas is like the artwork, and you're kind of taking one fragment of him and even though it's like you're performing, it's like you're taking that and recording it, but then you're also performing it multiple times. I don't know. Does that make sense?
I think so. Yeah, it's a very interesting. How to say it in English? What's the word? I don't want to say comment, but what's the word? Carolina. She knows. Yeah, but no.
Like you're expanding the idea of an archive to be something grander than these, and then also that the artwork, which makes so much sense, that you're focusing on Fluxus artists because there was such a blur between the artist and the work and life.
Yeah, I mean, it's like a kind of was natural attraction, I would say. to Plexus. Yeah, but thank you, Milo. It was very, very beautiful what you said. I know. I think no one has ever thought in that way about my work, and yeah, it's nice.
It almost feels as though it's a kind of collage of different personality aspects that you're sort of creating a kind of bouquet or a palette of all these different individual characteristics of different people, a kind of human collage in a way of their beautiful qualities or interesting qualities that also give us insights into their sensibilities and their processes. Are you implying somehow that we are all like a random collection of personality aspects ourselves?
I think I started saying something at the very beginning when you asked me the first question that yes, that I do see it very much like that.
You called that a polyphonic autobiography?
That was the research title. Yes, that's what I call it. Sort of. Yes, that was the.
Do you ever have the feeling that you've lost your own concept of self to some degree while you're doing this kind of work?
To lost? No, I think that we evolve always, all the time. No, we change all the time. Also, depending like who we meet on our way and who do we talk the most at the moment. So, no, in that sense, no.
You mentioned though that sometimes you have the feeling that these people are in your family or part of your family in some way. Can you describe that a little bit?
Yes, okay. Yes, I remember I mentioned that. I think it's just when you get so much into the research process and like because what I usually do is I really like
hand raise.
yeah, okay.
I'm sorry. Say it again. Say that again. When you get into this performance, yeah.
No. When I start like kind of getting to know more, I want to know as much as I can about the person that I work with. I'm on, and so when I start a research process, I really like to talk to as many people as possible who knew this person or who know this person, just to kind of have the more, let's say, objective view. I do read, of course, all the art history books and all that other stuff that we are, but contact with other people who knew this person is the most important. And if you have if you hear so many stories, like personal stories from family members, from friends, at some point you kind of start feeling that you are very close to this person. And that's why I think I mentioned to you that sometimes I feel like they were my family members, yes. Because something, yeah, it's kind of, I don't know, this intimate connection happens.
I'd love to have Jen Maza comment or make present a question. And then I believe, if I'm not wrong, Gordon may have a follow-up question. Please, Jen.
Thank you. I feel like this question is not formulated maybe as well as I would like it to, but I realize I might not be able to do that in the time frame. And it may also be a question that you can't or won't answer.
Okay.
So I want to kind of like sort of say that, because I also mine art for material, that there's always this moment in kind of learning about art where you make a copy of a master artist's work. It's a sort of mimetic act. It's also has that quality possibly of intimacy, though often a student is not doing it in that way. I guess my question is I know that my interest, and I actually may be projecting this on your work, is that you're not interested in a feedback loop of insularity within art. So I feel like there is something, outside of art that you're using this reenactment or this adaptation to qualify in some way. So I just wondered if you could talk just a little bit more about that difference between copying, the sort of that mimetic moment, and what you're talking about in terms of adaptation. And, you know, if you feel like, you know, making into words some of what that is geared towards, that would be lovely. Thank you.
Thank you, Jen. Yeah, I should maybe mention that Jen and Maria participated in, we met because of my project on Ritual Bellamy, and they are part of my project. They are already like this, I would say, like comparing them with so stupid, stupid, I don't know, naive compared to a painting. So you are like a, you know, a brush stroke or something like that, no? A paint in my work, yeah. Okay. But try to answer a common question, Jen. The difference between mimicking and adaptation, or how do I see it in my work? So for example, I think that the most visible, the most visible in a way, because it was literally visible, it was an audio work, was this work with this Dutch artist that I was learning her handwriting, for example. So at some point, my writing became, so I learned that, I learned I learned her handwriting at first by mimicking, right? By copying her way of writing. And after a very processual process, I kind of was able to mimic in a way, to copy by hand. But I noticed that that over time that I was doing it, my own handwriting has changed. And even if I was trying to write, you know, my own notes, my handwriting was different. And at some point, I was kind of not scared, but I was intrigued by this, and I contacted a graphologist and, you know, specialist, and kind of try to explain me what's going on. So that was really really visible process in a way that, yes, so that was her handwriting, that was my handwriting before I started the project, and there was something in between that, well, I do write different until now, and it was a couple of years ago. So my handwriting has never came back to the way it used to be before I started this project, for example. So that's that was visually, and usually it's sort of like this. No matter if I learn a laughter or a voice, it's something that I start from mimicking, so kind of trying to understand the structure of it, and then it becomes more kind of interlaid with my own. So my own quality is never the same as it used to be before, but it's never the same as the quality of the artist, if that makes sense.
Weronika, can you speak a little bit more about the sensations that you experience and the process after you begin mimicking? What kind of, you know, tactile or tangible, observable things occur during your process?
Can you repeat your question, John? I'm sorry.
Yeah, you mentioned that, you know, one of the methods that you use is a kind of mimicking process, and then at some point other things begin to happen. Do you mind sharing a little bit what those experiences are like? Is it an emotional experience? Is it a tactile energy experience? A little bit, perhaps, what your process is like.
I think it also depends on the work, because it's different. Yeah, it's used to be at least different when I work with voice and, for example, with silence or laughter, or. But what usually happens is that, for example, say, like, maybe example would be easier. When I was working on the project on Sturtevant voice, I was training myself, let's say, by listening to her talks, right? And she had very manneristic way of giving talks, for example, and she constantly repeated certain phrases. And because I was learning also her accent, and And at some point, I think I realized that I was speaking sort of in her phrases in a way, and that was kind of weird feeling. But there's this interesting feeling that you have, that you kind of lose this border between the character and you. And but usually I'm not sure if I'm answering your question actually, but usually the first process of mimicking at the first stage, when I try to kind of learn the foundation of the quality, it's very much thinking about this person, right? Like a lot of images comes of like trying to imagine maybe unconsciously more or less the way what the person would be doing.
So a follow-up question is like, is there some internal practice or discipline that you have that enables you to stay in it, to sustain or prolong this activity, this process? If you don't mind, maybe a very personal question. I'm not sure.
No. I mean, it's not. I don't mind. I would say that the work itself is very processual and very contemplative, and yes, and that's there are of course things that I'm interested in, and also some physical exercise, or some not even exercises, but some physical training that I do to kind of like, be better in a way what I do. Right. But the work itself, I think that it's a repetition, and it requires discipline, definitely.
Our friend Gordon in Brooklyn would like to add a comment. And Gordon, can you unmute yourself?
Sorry about that. Yeah, I was, listening to how you were describing, and had a thought, because I'm working with doing a project that's addressing the nexus between aging and ageism and identity. Mm-hmm. And I've had the great good fortune of working with a number of different choreographers who are working with aging populations using dance to offset dementia. Mm-hmm. And I thought that this might also be, an applicable, you might be able to apply this with this group of people, especially, those where memory can often be challenged. And the experience of something that is in the moment, will allow them to also tap into past experiences. That's the beauty of laughter, that it is occurring in 3 different times, if you will. It's past, present, and future. You are laughing in the moment.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
For something that, you experienced, that caused the laughter, but you're also reflecting on, laughter in the past, other times where you've had joy. And you're also thinking about, maybe how you are then perceived. It brings to mind the old adage that a person has 4 faces. There's the face that you show. Mm-hmm. There's the face that others see. Mm-hmm. There's the face that you believe that you are showing. And then there's the true face. And sometimes, we start being caught up with the perception, how am I being perceived, which may be incongruous with what your intentions are, or how you are hoping to emit. Mm-hmm. That, I'm not trying to get on some intellectual diatribe. I just really think that this might be, a great, a ready, environment, as I used earlier, excuse the redundancy, to apply this and see and have conversations, certainly with the paraprofessionals, the therapists, and the, if it's dancers or whomever is the artist, to really, introduce this and then see its impact, and then that will, help with you establishing the efficacy, of the work. But something I thought I would share.
Thank you. Yeah, that's a nice idea too. Yeah. It also reminded me in a way that I said aging, but it's how do you say that? So I don't know. For example, this project on the voice that I did. So it was the Stiftevan voice, and for example, like all the recordings that I could find of her speaking were when she was already in her late 70s. So I mean, my kind of also trying maybe referring to Jen's question was also trying to kind of learn the way she was speaking. I didn't want to mimic her, her way of speaking when she was in her 70s. So my kind of attitude to this work was not that, oh, I'm going to speak like an old lady. So that's also nice when you mentioned that something can be in the past, the future, and the present at the same time. So that was also kind of trying to speak as 70 years old Sturtevant, being at that time 20. Maybe something years old girl.
Right. Well, the simultaneity of time, I would humbly submit that,
Just unmute yourself when he's done, okay?
I would just humbly submit that the person who is speaking at 70 isn't thinking of them as speaking at 70.
Yeah.
What does a 70-year-old voice sound like from the person who's actually speaking? I don't even think of the age in which I am when I'm speaking, or laughing,
Exactly, yeah.
But how it then is interpreted.
You're still young, Gordon.
Well, thank you. Bless your heart.
I mean it.
No, but that's also something that's quite important for me to hear that. It makes sense for me. Thank you.
Emily, go ahead. Go ahead.
Okay. Have you ever chosen an artist who is alive? Who you met?
I haven't done a project on a living artist. That's true, but it was not conscious. It wasn't like a conscious decision that, I'm just working with artists that pass away. But I didn't do any project of, So if the moment comes that I will be like, intrigued, or, sparks will come and then I will have to do it, I will do it. But so far, that's true, no.
Weronika, has this session so far, and we have some more time as long as people want to stay with us, but has this session so far, can you tell if it's in some way added to your picture of what it is you're doing and your own image of yourself?
Yes, definitely. I feel like it's a therapeutic session. I hear so many new ideas about my work that I haven't thought about. So that's wonderful. Thank you, everyone, for this. It opens my kind of things there.
Well, that's great, frankly, and I. Coming back to this idea of that we sort of accumulate, or like different parts of our personalities maybe stick with us like glue in some way, and they change as you mentioned, as we have more experiences, what we call sometimes a charisma or ego or whatever it is changes.
Mm-hmm.
But who is the identity that's watching?
Watching, but I'm not sure if I understood correctly.
Who's watching all of these personalities come and go, or changes occur? what identity is that?
I guess the other people know.
What?
People who know us, I would say.
I see.
They are like a mirror. They know that we have changed or not.
Yeah, but what I'm asking is more a different angle. Who is it inside us that's watching us change? Is there some stable, sort
And
of?
does it have to be someone? I don't know.
Well, it seems implied that that there are so many aspects or elements or nuances to our identities or personalities that perhaps some part of us is conscious of that process and can even let go and consciously adapt, these mannerisms or expressions of personality.
Yeah, and I think it's a good. I can answer this question. That's probably a question to higher spirits that they know more than I do.
No, go ahead.
Has the process of adapting and to these different fragments of people's personalities, of artist personalities, has that changed your interrelationships with other people? Maybe someone asked this question before, but has that changed?
You mean any more
like
I'm more conscious, for example, of that? Definitely, I'm more conscious about this. Like, what's the way I behave or the way I speak. And I think I catch myself more often when I see that, I kind of try unconsciously mimic something. That's definitely yes. And also all the research that I have done over years, that's the knowledge, yeah.
In the research that you've made, have you felt that anything is lacking for specific artists that you've been researching?
I'm not really sure if I understand your question, Emily, but maybe yeah, I don't know. Can you maybe rephrase a little bit or?
So when you were researching George Maciunis's laughter or his life, were there things within that research that you felt were missing, or that deep enough, or?
That's I thought I understood it that way, but I wanted to make sure. Thanks, Emily. And I think that because somehow how to explain it more clear, that I think that every quality of ours tells something about us. So, for example, like with this handwriting, that somebody seeing my handwriting, like those people called graphologists, but anyway, somebody seeing my handwriting can kind of describe my personality just by seeing this handwriting. So the way, for example, somebody laughs can say for me like so much about a person, the personality of a person, of the way somebody moves, or the way you put your bag on the table, how the way you sit or you sit down. So those are things that I probably never mentioned in the history of art. That I think that I created my own understanding of those people because I dig inside of their more personalities than just in books and even maybe people that knew them. But like with George Maciunas, I've been listening to his laughter, and you kind of immediately have a feeling that, oh, he was like this and that person. Or maybe I think very often that if I would like this person, if I knew, this person also in a way. And so that's something that adds up to, for example, the art historical research that is available.
Could you speak about the project that you did about James Lee Byers, or influenced by his life?
Okay, yes, so that was a bike tour, actually. That was a performative bike tour in New York, organized by Artists Alliance and Bike New York at that time, 2 years ago maybe. So yes, that's a map of Manhattan. So me and a group of other people, bikers, were trying to encircle the Manhattan. Yeah, so make a circle in the grid of Manhattan. And the work was very much inspired by the artist James Lee Byers, because of the quality of his work and quality of his personality, and it's a lot to say about it. So I don't know, but yeah, the main idea was to do that. It was a utopic work that we were trying to make a circle on the grid of the map.
So it was executed on bicycles. Is that correct? Can you just describe the actual, sort of elements?
Yes, that was a tour organized by the organization that usually does biking tours in New York in various places, and so yeah, the participants were also people who were interested in a bike tour more than art, probably, and yeah, so that was the tour that we did. And in the middle of the tour, I asked, because the way was also very contemplative, because we went from one side of Manhattan to another, so it was like a more than 1 hour route, and along the rivers, both rivers on both sides. And I asked the participants at some point of the way to kind of make notes and write down things that they came to their mind, or about the tour or their life, whatever, if they wanted to share this. And then we published it as a series of postcards.
So Weronika, in terms of cultural activism, have you thought about what you were doing in the context of some kind of activism?
Some kind of activism, that's also a good question.
Yeah.
I feel that a lot of, because now it's activism has that's also different meanings. And I think in a way that I do engage other people and try to engage other people, and also be active in the, John, I don't really know how to answer this question, just to.
Well, another interest I have is there room in a project for a viewer to become a participant, and at what point do they cross the line?
Yes, so that's as I also mentioned, for example, with the laughter. So as you could see, the work, so people become a part of the work, and there was there are various examples of that, in a way, that besides the participation in the performance, like for example, with the work on Dick Bellamy, that was based on studio visits that I conducted in various places, and so the participants of the studio visit became a part of the work as well. So there's like the bike tour as well. Like there are people, that the participants of the tour became the part of the work as well, in a way. But also there's audience coming just to see the show or listen to the, to the audio or performance, that they do feel something and they also are part of the work.
Is it a little bit of a kind of intervention, or is it a little bit subversive to sort of assign a aesthetic role or a task to, let's say, untrained people or ordinary people who are not the authors of the artwork?
I didn't think about it that way. I don't think they even need to know that that are becoming like an artwork. I think the experience itself is important as well.
That can be perhaps an unexpected experience or shocking in some way, or something new and something that people haven't considered before. That is potentially disruptive to their own ideas about themselves, about the creative, impact of an individual, and perhaps even the impact of a community when we act creatively together. So I ask you if you consider yourself a dangerous person in that context. In that context.
If it can change somebody's life, that could be dangerous, yes. If the experience can change, right? In a way, yes.
And have you ever considered running for political position?
Political opposition. I think that I think I would have to invent my own country first.
Oh, and is that one of your secret projects as you're sort of
Exactly.
hiding out in Poland in isolation?
Yes.
During the pandemic?
Exactly. No, yes, that's the only way to survive.
Weronika, during the pandemic, has there been a positive kind of value for you during this time?
I think that we should see positive sides of everything, because otherwise you will get crazy probably now. So that's definitely, if I would have to say, definitely there were some positive impacts, because otherwise I wouldn't be probably here even, and probably I would just sit depressed and I don't know. Yeah, I think that I don't know, maybe some part of us inside needed this time to kind of rethink things, maybe slow down. Of course, everyone talks about it, but not everyone wants this in a way. I think that that's also a different approach, and experience differently.
It's so true. It's indeed. And what are you working on? What have you been doing? A little more recently, for example.
Thinking about all the events that are constantly being postponed and cancelled and all that stuff, trying to adapt. Basically, I think that what I'm doing right now is I'm trying to adapt to the current situation and not running away from it. So I've been doing some not very new work, but I think this time is very good for kind of finishing other projects or rethinking other works that I do.
Okay, so I wonder if anybody else would like to contribute something or ask Weronika something, or talk among ourselves a little bit, and maybe Weronika has some questions for us.
I just feel it was very chaotic, but hopefully not that much. What I was saying.
Maybe you're just living in the moment and not recognizing the connection with other moments, which is pretty interesting. What were you going to say, Em?
Well, I just didn't hear.
Huh?
I didn't hear what Weronika said.
Oh, she didn't hear. Okay. Yeah. So, Sally, what's the weather like in Afton, Minnesota?
It's been sunny all week, and it's probably like 65 degrees, which is incredible. It's beautiful. I was thinking as Weronika was talking about becoming so familiar with her subject and feeling that their family, I know being a part of 7 children, as you're raised, you notice things about siblings that you don't consciously think about. And I've had the experience where I've, a mannerism that I've used, I've thought, that's how Myrna feels when she has that same mannerism. So I'm wondering if Weronika has that same sensation where she's been able to research and inhabit so much that she can actually almost feel like that person at the moment that she's representing them.
Right.
Yeah, it's hard for me to relate because I have no siblings, so maybe that's the filling the gap that of my missing siblings that I have never thought about. Yeah. I was actually talking recently to my friend about this feeling of like how weird it would be to have like a twin, you know, for example, or not even thinking about siblings because I'm the only child. So I had imaginary sister when I was little, but I think that's the only connection to. Yeah. But thank you, Sarah. Yeah, that was really nice. Yeah.
What is your status, Weronika, in terms of being able to travel and see your family or travel to other countries right now?
I am honestly getting a little lost about all the new restrictions and all the new laws that's coming up every day. I haven't been traveling anywhere, basically, and I moved because of COVID, I also moved to my hometown to be closer to my parents, just in case. And I don't think it's recommended to travel still. So yeah, that's very much hermitage life.
What is the view of the American political landscape from your community perspective, your family, friends, and perhaps even the European perspective? Can you say something about that?
Oh, the election is being broadcasting the whole day. They talk more about American election now than about anything in Poland today. So yeah, I don't really. Honestly, I don't really want to answer this question. If I can, like, if I get into politics, I get too emotional, and yeah. We don't support Trump, like my family. That's the only thing I can say.
But for example, some artists are also political activists. Some strictly work in their studios. Some integrate cultural activism, which is not necessarily political activism. Maybe it has more to do with a revision or a new vision of society. But there is some serious political things happening in Poland right now, isn't there?
Yeah, today was actually a protest of the cultural workers as well. That everyone is protesting for the reason. And today, because we don't have any support for culture, basically.
You were recently doing some kind of a theatrical performance or something on Zoom. I didn't get to experience that yet.
Me, myself? No, not yet, not really, no.
Was it a reading or something, a rehearsal? What was happening?
Did I say something? Did I did something?
I remember seeing a kind of image on your Instagram?
That was no, that was the workshop that my friend put together of Alvin Lucier's piece, the Quasimodo, the Great Lover. So we did online workshop, like performing this composition online, because it's the one that about whales communicating.
Well, if there's some way that we can be supportive of you developing your work, perhaps something specifically for the virtual space or Zoom, then let us please all be able to be part of that experience with you. And yeah, and we'd like to put your work on our website. Our talk tonight has been live on Facebook, and it will be archived within a few days, and people can watch this on. If you agree, people can watch this on the Institute for Cultural Activism International website. Don't feel pressure to agree right now. You can think.
No, okay. All the things make public, then it's not going to disappear forever. No, I'm joking.
Okay, well, if there's something else maybe you'd like to share, or anyone else would like to share, we have about 1 or 2 minutes left. We're not restricted to a 90-minute window, but we often do go to 90 minutes. But we can also, say goodnight sooner and go back to watching what's developing in the American political world. Some of it. Some of it.
This is so important for us.
Gordon, please. Thank you, Gordon.
Thank you, everyone, for being here and all your, words and comments.
And Gordon has another contribution to make. I lost you, Gordon.
No, I think that he was saying.
Oh, he's saying goodbye. Oh, okay. Well then, thank you all. And I didn't mean to interrupt you, Weronika, but maybe you'd like to say thank you again, and keep rehearsing this thank you.
Yes. Online, no. I hope we'll see each other. Not. I mean, it's great to see you here like this, but I hope soon, one day, I we'll meet in person again.
I'm so really grateful for everyone being here, and feel really nurtured and enriched by having this time with you, Weronika. And Emily here is program producer, and so much work that she's doing that's not obvious. And but every question, everything that appears in this format, we do together. And it's so beautiful to collaborate with my partner, my lover, my queen. So thank you all very much, and see you all soon again.
Thank you.
Thanks, Veronica.
Bye-bye, thanks. Bye-bye.
Good night, and good luck. The Tuning Fork, setting the tone for cultural activism through weekly encounters with cultural activists worldwide. Live on ICAI, Institute for Cultural Activism International.